Sudhijana Sumandaram Sudhindra Sutta Supriyam Sushamindra Gurum Vande Sujindra Karodbhavam. What is contained in them? What are the profound messages that are contained in them? Now, the word Veda comes from the root Vidajnani. So it is a reservoir of knowledge. If we study Vedas in a dispassionate, objective manner, in a comprehensive manner, you would realize it is really a reservoir of the different dimensions of life. It is a reservoir of science subjects, it is a reservoir of social science, psychology, management, philosophy, that is Adhyatma. So the material life and also the spiritual life are referred to in the Vedas. A great Acharya said that the relevance of Vedas to the people on the earth has to be really appreciated and understood. Adukkha mitarat sarvam jivaayevatu dukkhinaha tesham dukkha prahanaya srutiresha pravartate. See, the rest except the beings, particularly human beings, the rest is not experiencing dukkha. But if you study the Vedas, you will get the messages, the ways and means of getting rid of the dukkhas. Even in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna has to tell what is contained in the Vedas, he says, Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha Nistraigunnyo Bhavarjuna Nidvandvo Nityasattvastho Niryoga Kshema Atmavan. So Arjuna had doubt. Why should he listen to Krishna and learn about the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita? So Paramatma says that Traigunya Vishaya Vedaha. Vedas have two types of messages. One is called as the Karma Kanda, the other is the Jnana Kanda. See, Traigunyam, Triguna means Sattva Rajas Tamo Guna Vikaras. Traigunya Vishayaha. Apparently, they seem to tell you about the Karma Kanda, as is now understood. The present times, Vedas means they are the only mantras for rituals. Whether it is for the Janma Samskara, Namakarana Samskara, or Vivaha Samskara, or other types of rituals, Vedas are recited by our Purohits and the Pandits. So Vedas are meant only for these rituals. So Karma Kandas. But Paramatma says that you don't get bogged down by karmas only. Because karma is the apparent meaning, but through karma, you must move to the Jnana Marga. See, Sarvam Karma Akhilam Partha Dhyane Parisamapyate. Sarvam Karma Dhyane Prapte Safalam Bhavati. So all the karmas which we do will have to end up in providing a knowledge base to us. So Bhagavad Gita is a treatise relevant to everyday life, all the problems of life. Now, if we look at Bhagavad Gita as a Moksha Shastra, as a Shastra which is pertaining to the modalities of realizing moksha, that is one way of looking at it. But Bhagavad Gita, I always mention as a treatise on management, treatise on psychology, treatise on human behavior, treatise on conflict resolution, treatise on the human welfare, treatise on conversations, treatise on human relations. So according to me, if you keep on reflecting on Bhagavad Gita, you will get messages for these different dimensions of life. Take for instance the first sloka itself, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveta Yuyutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaiva Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. The apparent meaning of this sloka is obvious. We all know. In Kurukshetra, Pandavas and Kauravas had assembled, and Arjuna get into, first of all, Dhritarashtra, born blind. We are all blind. Though with eyes, we are not able to see the right from the wrong. So we are blind in a way. So Dhritarashtra symbolizes all of us in a way. Dhritam Rashtram Ena Saha, the one who is holding the body. This Rashtra is the body as the Rashtra. So Dhritarashtra is a blind because he did not have eyes. But most of us are blind even with the eyes because we are not able to see through what is right and wrong, what is dharma and adharma, what we should do when we are in a dilemma, in conflict situations. So Dhritarashtra asks Sanjaya, and Sanjaya was endowed with extraordinary Daivi Shakti of seeing through, almost like our present day television, telecasts the events happening on the war front, and Sanjaya is able to see through his eyes and narrate it to Dhritarashtra. This is the apparent physical meaning. And he says that place, which is both Dharmakshetra and Kurukshetra, what happened? My people had assembled, and then Pandavas had assembled. What happened? What really happened further? But the meaning in terms of psychology, the deeper meaning of this is that Kurukshetra is not a place of warfare near Delhi or in Haryana, as we all know. But Kurukshetra is our mind itself. Kurukshetra is the mind where the warfare between good thoughts and bad thoughts takes place. You see? And Dhritarashtra, as I said, ourselves. And Sanjaya, Samyak Jayati iti Sanjaya. That means always victorious. So who is the most victorious, who is always successful, who is always correct, is our conscience. Many times we say, ask your conscience, what you have done is correct or not. So conscience, Sakshi, inner conscience, that conscience should always tell you what is right and what is wrong. So the first sloka itself gives you a universal principle of how to deal with conflict situations or dilemmas. Dhritarashtra is myself. What I should do is I should ask the question to my conscience when Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, the opposing forces. Dharmakshetra is Dharma Rakshaka Kshetra. Dharma is a concept which is the most misunderstood. I will elaborate on a number of concepts which are very misunderstood, rather sometimes mischievously misunderstood, mischievously misinterpreted in our lives, thanks to the Western translators of our scriptures and our inability to read Sanskrit and understand the basic texts. We follow whatever they say. Dharma, as you all know in dictionary, is given as religion. Religion again takes our mind to rituals. So dharma means rituals. What a false and what is a misconceived, what a mischievous interpretation of dharma. You see, that is why our constitution builders said that we should have a dharma nirapeksha society. They thought that religion with rituals and Hindu religion, Christian religion, Muslim religion, Buddhist religion, etc., will be dividing force. So they thought that dharma is the divider in the society. So therefore, let us create a society which is neutral, what is so-called secular, you see. Secular is fine, as long as you are neutral to the different dividing elements of the different faiths and the different rituals and different dharmas. But dharma is not religion in that sense of the term. In Sanskrit, the words come from the basic roots. Even though English words also come from the Latin roots, if you take the Oxford Dictionary or Macmillan's Dictionary, you find inside the word, English word, there is a small Latin root given. But they don't tell us how the word is derived from the roots. Whereas in Sanskrit, thanks to Panini grammar of 6th century BC and the subsequent Patanjali Bhashya and so on, you are able to, such a profound language, perfect language, even used for computer software development in recent times by the Westerners, by the people in Germany, in UK, in USA. They are studying Sanskrit, they are teaching Sanskrit as a compulsory subject just because they find that some of these Shabdabodha Shastra and grammar are useful in computer development and logic rigor development, whereas we have not realized that. So Sanskrit has the basic richness of getting words from the roots. So dharma is dharanat dharma uchyate. Dhru dharana poshanayoh, dudhai dharana poshanayoh. Dhru is also dharana. Dharanat dharma uchyate. That means dharma is the values, the one which sustains us. In the Bhagavata commentary by one great commentator called Vijayadhwaja Acharya, he has said that dharma means the adhapatan purushaha dhriyate adhapatan purushaha anena iti. Dharma is a set of codes of conduct, moral values, the principles of life, modalities of living, human relations, in such a way that a person who is falling, who is deteriorating, who is going to lower strata of his own life and society, would be able to raise himself up. you will realize that in life, when we are losing, when we are becoming more and more depressed, sticking to certain principles, certain traditional values would help you to become a little more rejuvenated. So dharma is the values, is the code of conduct. One great Acharya has defined dharma as the most secular manner, whereas our people thought dharma is not secular, it is a non-secular, it is a dictatorial. So it says, he says, swasva vihita vritya bhaktya bhagavad aradhanameva paramo dharmaha tad viruddha sarvopi adharmaha. Swasva vihita vritya bhaktya bhagavad aradhanameva paramo dharmaha. That means each one performing his prescribed duties with a mindset of service to God and with great devotion and commitment, without any personal agenda in it, without having any deviations from his commitment. If he does that, his prescribed duty, it is called as dharma. Tad viruddha is all adharma. So how general it is? It's not refining to any rituals. It's not saying about Brahmin dharma. It is not saying Hindu dharma. It is not saying any Manava dharma also. It is a universal definition of dharma. Anywhere in the modern life, one may be a clerk, one may be an officer, he may be a manager, he may be an engineer, he may be a professor, he may be a postman, he may be a peon, he may be a minister, he may be the President of India, he may be an army man. Any service, he may be a servant, anything, any profession, you do it with thoroughness, with devotion, commitment, and with a mindset of service to God and without personal agenda, that is dharma. How many of us are realizing that dharma is so universal? We are told time in and time out that we must despise dharma. So those who wanted the constitution, built the constitution, they had not understood what is dharma. So they said we must have a dharma nirapeksha society. But those who implemented this objective seems to have known what dharma means, the values. So today we have ended up in having a society when values have collapsed. Values are no longer there. So they said we have fulfilled the basic objective of the constitution builders by creating a dharma nirapeksha society, which means a society which is devoid of values. So dharma is, I will come to many such concepts. Yajna is highly misunderstood, misused. Yajna does not mean throwing havis as a sacrifice in the fire. Every activity of ours is yajna. Eating is an yajna. Talking is an yajna. And movement of our air, inhaling, exhaling is yajna. Activity of our indriyas is yajna. So universal concept. But still we have been told by the Westerners it is a ritual involving sacrifice of animals, and we keep on believing that yajna is something which is only specific to a particular activity or particular event. But yajna is a universal. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna told Arjuna that Sahayajnah praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishadvam eshavos tvishtakamathuk. So I have created all the entities of the universe with yajnas attached to them. What does it mean? Yajna means capability. Yajna means activity. A spider is given the capability to build the net. A bee is given the capability to suck the honey from the flowers and bring it and store it in the beehive. Can we do that? No. So what he said was that Brahma, either Chaturmukha Brahma or Parabrahma, has created all the entities in the world with capabilities attached. Manava is endowed with the capability of buddhi, sarasara viveka. In fact, the Bhagavata says that when different entities were created, when he created Manava, he was extremely delighted. This is Brahmava bodha dhishanam mudamapa devaha. That is how in Bhagavata it is stated. That when he created Manava, with the ability to understand Brahma, with the ability to sift the right from the wrong, buddhi, then he was very pleased. But what we are doing? Today we are not fulfilling the expectations of the Creator himself. We are using our buddhi for all distortionary purposes. So that apart, so dharma is basically The value system, yajna is any activity. Similarly, yoga. Yoga is the most misunderstood concept. Often we say yoga, we only refer to this pranayama, yogasana and so on. Whereas yoga stands for any upaya to achieve the objective. Buddhi yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana vijnana yoga. All the 18 adhyayas of Bhagavad Gita, each one tells one yoga. Even the first adhyaya is Vishada yoga. No, as I'm just in the preliminary stage of elaborating on the concepts and the misconceptions, that mischievous interpretations of these that are given in practice. So yet I will come more elaborately on these. So therefore, the very first sloka, dharma kshetra, then kurukshetra. So dharma is the value system, and Kauravas, they stand for certain adharma, certain negative forces. The positive forces and negative forces have entered the Kurukshetra, that is our mind. So they have in our mind. There also, Mamakaha Pandavaschaiva. These two forces are characterized by, one is Mamaka, that is endowed or characterized by Ahankara. Dhritarashtra said it is mine, attachment. Similarly, when Dhritarashtra is ourselves, certain thought processes are having deep personal agenda. They have to be fulfilled. I am very keen that they become successful. I am very keen that they are realized. They are all Mamakas. Whereas some thought processes are Pandavaha. They are pure, they are white, they are unblemished, So when two conflicting thought processes, good and bad, right and wrong, and evil and righteous, all these come in the Kurukshetra, how should I resolve this problem? So the way the first sloka indicates is you ask your conscience. Conscience is the keeper of the right always. That is why when Arjuna gets into all his own wrong arguments, then Krishna says, Yadate moha kalilam buddhir vetitarishyati tada gantasya nirvedam srotavyasya srutasya cha. Krishna Paramatma attacked his buddhi. He says your buddhi, reasoning power is blemished, is corrupted, has caught certain rust. Therefore you first purify it. That's why at the end he says, Nashto moha smritir labdha, as our Ghanapati Acharya said, Nashto moha smritir labdha putprasadan maya chuta. Therefore Bhagavad Gita, I gave the first sloka just as a curtain raiser, so say that we have to interpret it as a treatise on management. Most of our management gurus, as we teach them in our schools, colleges and universities, are telling us how to manage others, whereas Bhagavad Gita tells you how to manage oneself. Managing oneself is much superior to managing others. See, managing others cannot be successful, cannot be possible, cannot be done properly if one is not managing oneself. So that is why Bhagavad Gita becomes a much greater treatise than even Peter Drucker's treatise on. Peter Drucker is supposed to be a management guru in the Western world. So his treatise on management is partial. It does not tell you how to manage the things in a holistic manner. So Bhagavad Gita tells you how to manage oneself, and through that tells you how to manage others. Now, this I did only as a sort of a curtain raiser. But our subject is to see the messages that we get from Vedas and Bhagavad Gita. So since I have a series of 6 lectures, I have tried to cover a number of the themes, number of the source materials to deal with the problems of dealing with the world peace and human welfare. You see? Even before that, I must analyze one more question as to why, as I said in the beginning, why to worry about Bhagavad Gita, Vedas and so on. All these implies a certain kind of pride for heritage, pride for our own fundamental knowledge system and wisdom. Why should we worry about that? See, for that, I have 2 or 3 layers of answers. You see, One is pride for, all these come as heritage knowledge, heritage wisdom. They are very old and they are very important. But pride for heritage symbolizes pride for oneself, one's own past. And no individual, no society, no nation can prosper if one does not have the pride for heritage. So pride for heritage and knowledge is important. The second reason for looking to the ancient scriptures is that there is a lot of rich wisdom and knowledge available in the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita. And as was stated, Bhagavad Gita is the quintessence of Upanishads. And Upanishads are the summaries of Vedas. So in that sense, the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita gives you the sum and substance of the basic source material, namely Vedas. So that is why our lecture series would be on most part on Bhagavad Gita, but initially also I would deal with some messages directly coming from the Vedas. So if we increase our awareness, if we know, what has happened in our system is more than several centuries, more than 1,000 years, we have lost touch with our own basic scriptures and Sanskrit language particularly. Ever since a number of invasions took place here on this country to get our prosperity taken away from here, they were coming to us not only because we had gold mines, we had diamonds, we had this, that and so on, but they were also coming to us because our country was intellectually very prosperous. The contributions made by our ancestors to physical science, to mathematics is amazing. But we have not got the credit for it because partly we are responsible for it. We have not pursued that origination of the knowledge in us very rigorously, so others have claimed. Numerals. You always say Arabic numerals. See, whereas Indian place value system, decimal system, Indian contributions of 0 and Indian contribution to higher mathematics, geometry, trigonometry is amazing. So we have lost touch with that and we have left the credit to the outside world. And therefore, if we make effort to understand what is contained in our basic source materials, we will feel excited. And that excitement, I feel, is a very important factor for nation building, pride for oneself. See, even to give you an example, how we have lost credit for a number of scientific concepts. See, blood circulation. We assign it to Neil Harvey or some scientist of 17th, 18th century, perhaps around that period in Europe. But whereas the use of the word Hridaya in us, Hridaya, Hriharane, that means it takes the blood from the other parts of the body. Da means it gives after purification. Aya means it makes it to go throughout the body. So Hridaya is a concept wherein the blood circulation, purification of the blood by the heart, all these were known to our rishis. So I don't say that all the modern scientific developments were known to our rishis, but the basic knowledge about science, about social science, about psychology, about physical science was amazing. And then Ayurveda, for instance, is so deeply ingrained in the scriptures, Ayurvedic texts, but we have not followed that. So therefore, the second reason for the pride for heritage is that they are rich and we can know what is contained in them and apply to the modern world. Coming to the social science field, I feel the Vedas approach or Bhagavad Gita approach or Upanishads approach is much more fundamental than what we are doing today is in terms of economic development or management. I am an economist by training and I can very boldly say that our approach to the development process for human welfare is extremely faulted. See, man is not only a materialistic man. See, if we look at him only as a materialistic man, what we do today is fine. But that does not assure you to improve the well-being or the welfare of the man. A man may be terribly rich, may be having a lot of material wealth, but he may not have the sound mind. He may not have the approach to life which should give him happiness. Just to give an example, contentment, for instance. Our basic Vedic philosophy of life says that we should have contentment. Kamaesha krodhaesha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahasano mahapapma vidyaina meha vairinam. So if we look at that, the whole craze for more and more that is characterizing the present day society, and therefore the cause for human misery today. People who are endowed with some materials would always try to get more and more and exploit the others. Therefore, that human misery in large part of the society continues or even worsens. So, material prosperity is not a source for human happiness. It is not a source for the peace. See, when we say 3 times Shanti in our Shanti mantras, in all Upanishads, we say Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. 3 times we say. And I have seen many people, and I have also interpreted it as the first Shanti is peace to oneself. That is, you must have your mind, your indriyas, your approach to life be at a state of composure. It's a state of non-disturbance, non-turbulation, you see, Shanti. The second Shanti is you must ensure that you are having peace with the society, or the society or the nation has peace with you. So the second Shanti is a message for having a peaceful coexistence with others. The first is peaceful existence of yourself. The second Shanti is a peaceful coexistence with your neighbors, in the society, in the nation, in the mankind as a whole. And third Shanti is a peaceful coexistence with nature. See, today we are destroying all the 3 layers of Shanti. You are not at peace thinking that material progress makes you happier. You are not at peace with the neighbors and others because you have no respect for them. You have no faith in others. You find that others are competing with you and are destroying your well-being. The whole concept of competition, the market that has come now to rule our activities is most ruinous modality of our life. It destroys our peace. You are not competing for improving the welfare of all, but you are competing to destroy the other person and see that you get more and more of it. So the whole concept of market sharing, the globalization, you will realize that my jargons in presenting things would be different. I hope you will appreciate and see that I am presenting all these concepts and ideas in the most modern jargons, not in terms of only Moksha Shastra or the Dharma Shastra or something. See, the present day market and globalization tells you how large people should sacrifice their comforts for the benefit of the few multinationals. Whereas our concept of globalization in the ancient scriptures was very profound, much more, human welfare improver. How? Our dictum is, Sarve jana sukhino bhavantu, Sarve bhadrani paschantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Sarve jana sukhino bhavantu, Sarve santu niramayaha, Sarve bhadrani paschantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Don't think that these sermons were meant only for general consumption. I will show you, I will demonstrate to you how these sermons were really meant to be practiced, and to a large extent they were practiced. So the so-called second Shanti, neighboring with your neighbors, with your mankind, with society, with nation, is much more profoundly ingrained in our ancient scriptures than what we consider today. And the third Shanti obviously is thrown to winds, that is coexistence with nature. You just imagine, for road widening, for building houses, for construction, How many trees are cut in this country in the last decade or so? Has anybody estimated? You find the trees are cut, the mountains are cut, and the rivers are obstructed, and the result is the floods. The result is global warming. The result is distortions in the ecology. So the third Shanti is not maintained. In the ancient scriptures, even when forests were abundant, rivers were abundant, there were very clear instructions not to destroy the nature. In fact, in one Upanishad, in the Atharvana Upanishad, I think, there is a clear instruction that if you cut one tree, you should plant 2 more trees. So we have lot of wisdom, a lot of message available in, the environment, for instance. We say that don't pollute the air, don't pollute the earth, don't pollute the space, etc. So in the old jargon, these were Prithvi, Up, Tejas, Vayu, Akasha. Prithvi is land, Up is river, Vayu is wind, Tejas is fire or the fire source, and Akasha is the space. You are not supposed to do. But our ancient concept of environment was much more profound. The concept of environment itself had Kala, Dik, Atma, Manas. See, you are not supposed to pollute the Kala. Leave alone the Rahu Kala, Gulika Kala, etc. But at least you must have consciousness about Kala or the time as a resource, as an important resource. Not only that, one must begin the functions at the prescribed time, but you must finish your projects in the prescribed time. If you pollute the time factor, which is an important resource, you will create miseries in the society. You will pollute the environment. See? Similarly, Dik, the direction. Then Atma, conscience. Then Manas. If mind is polluted, any amount of cleaning up of rivers or the forests will not help creating a cleaner environment. Today mind is polluted. You are not having a peaceful environment and happy environment because the mind is polluted. So who will tell you this deeper concept of an environment? It is contained in our scriptures. Kala, Dik, Atma, Manas. The mind is getting polluted more and more. That is why you find so much of problem. So as I said in the beginning, materialism will not help you to get peace. And you may have high growth of GDP, you may accumulate wealth, you may have a lot of capital, you may have a lot of technology, but still you are miserable. I will give you instances how the most prosperous, so-called prosperous country, that is maybe the Americans, we consider them as the model today of capitalism and capitalist development. Lot of prosperity in them, lot of growth and expansion of technology. But whereas they are internally, in the heart of hearts, they are looking towards us for spiritual approach to life. We were the spiritual gurus for a long time. But we are trying to emulate them, but in the heart of hearts, not apparently, they try to learn from our spiritual foundations, whereas we are losing ground and awareness about our spiritual past. Our ancient scriptures approach, Vedic philosophy of life, Bhagavad Gita philosophy of life, is to say that we must have a proper blend of materialism and spiritualism. And poverty in India is widespread. A third of the world's poor live in India according to the World Bank's report. Even if you take the poverty rate as 32%, I'm an economist, I'm familiar with all these poverty exercises. We spend more time in estimating the poverty rate than the time what we should be spending on alleviating the poverty. We don't need to do so much of study. I'm an econometrician, so to say. But still, I sometimes feel disgusted with the amount of statistical jugglery we make to estimate the poverty rates and to show that each regime has brought down the poverty. Whereas, you go to an official area and see how people are destitute, how there is so much of slum, how there is hygiene problem, how there is water problem, how there is education problem, how there is health hazard problem. We don't need to have so much of sophisticated statistical figures to tell us that we are in a breaking down state. So the human welfare and the global peace, we have World Peace Day, we have got Millennium Development Goals to alleviate the poverty and the miseries of the people, but all these are very superficial. They only touch upon the boundary or the border of the problems. But the most fundamental problem of the collapse of world peace and collapse of human welfare is the approach to life. And in this approach to life, I'm not trying to be a very sermonizer or a very abstract, but if you deeply think as to what fundamental changes are required in our approach to life, you would realize that our Vedic philosophy of life and Bhagavad Gita provide the foundations for these new modalities of living. Even I have got a quotation from Ashoka's 7-pillar edicts, which says that the whole approach has to be changed. Happiness in this world, Ashoka's edict says, happiness in this world and the next is difficult to obtain without much love for the dharma. Okay, much self-examination, much respect, much fear of the evil, and much enthusiasm. So beloved of the gods, King Priyadasi speaks thus: animals are declared to be protected. All these are to be protected. Ashoka also protected were many goats, the ewes and sows, and our young ones less than 6 months old. Cocks are to be protected. So he gave a sermon of universal love and affection to bring in a new era of what we now call as non-violence. See, non-violence. See, non-violence in Bhagavad Gita, ahimsa, is one commentator on Bhagavad Gita, Acharya Raghavendra Swamigalu, says that himsa means parachittopadrava vyaparaha himsa. Himsa is not just physical injury to the other person, a bodily injury. It is anything which you do to hurt the mind of the other person, that is himsa. So one should avoid even this kind of himsa to have a peaceful coexistence. How many times we hurt the feelings of others? How many times we talk something and have something in the mind, manasekam, vachasekam, karmanyekam, mahatmana. Whereas how many of us, we cannot be Mahatmas, but at least closer to the harmony between what we have in mind, what we have in speech, and what we do in action. So these fundamental principles that come to us from our basic source material of Vedas and Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita. So if we understand the core factor which is responsible for causing the dislocation of world peace and distortion or erosion of the human welfare, then you will realize that we must learn more and more for what is contained in our scriptures. If this alarming picture of the crime in the most materialistic state of USA and also in India, and the perpetuation of these alarming situations over time makes us feel alarmed, then we should look to the messages contained in Vedas and Bhagavad Gita. So, yes, true that it may be very difficult to implement them suddenly, because we have moved away so much from our idealized, framework of life, which was sermonized in the Vedas and the scriptures. But at least let us understand that. Let us see where we have gone wrong, where the mankind has gone wrong. See, so what I propose to do is to spend some time on telling what kind of, some illustratively, give some examples from the Vedic riks, Vedic mantras, as to how interpreted in a different jargon, they give you profound principles of governance and life. Then I will refer to some of the portions of Mahabharata, some of the portions of Ramayana. In Ramayana, in the 100th Adhyaya of Ayodhya Kanda, where there is a conversation between Rama and Bharata, when Bharata comes to fetch him back to Ayodhya, saying that things have gone wrong, please forgive us and come back, Rama does not go as an ideal citizen of the nation. So forget about that he is a god, but as a most idealized, if you see in the beginning of the Valmiki Ramayana, the kind of characteristics which Valmiki attributes to Rama, he is definitely an idealized icon for us, for the mankind. He is an idealized icon to be followed. May not be 100%, 10%, 5%, 20%. We can try to emulate the features that which Rama possessed, not as a god, but as a superhuman being. You see? Then when Bharata comes to bring him back to Ayodhya, the beauty, Rama does not allow Bharata to say anything. If Rama had allowed Bharata to utter a single word, Bharata would have said, yes, Dasharatha has died and we have all come to fetch you. All the mothers have come and so you want to back. Then Rama would not have the opportunity of telling him the principles of governance. So Rama, Sri Ramachandra, or Rama as such, as a superhuman being, tells Bharata, he asks more than 300 questions as to what, are you doing this, are you doing that, are you not keeping this principle in mind. That entire Adhyaya is called as Kachit Sarga. See, Rama does not see, this is the beauty of Rama. So he does not allow Bharata to say. She only asks, why you have come? Is Dasharatha fine? Is he living all right? Then he starts pouring these 300, 400 questions. Have you appointed Purohita properly? Is your Senopati functioning all right? Are your Guptacharas doing their jobs? Are the Sris protected properly? All the people of different Varnas are practicing their dharma. And are you able to protect your border? My God, it is 300, more than 300. I have written an article on that. Kachit Sarga. So there is so much of wisdom. And then the conversation between Dharmaraja and Bhishmacharya, that in Anushasana Parva, etc. So there is a conversation between Dharmaraja and Draupadi on the eve of the Ajnatavasa. Draupadi asks, how long should we wait? And that conversation tells that man should work hard. See, prayatnam ekam agrato vidhaya bhutim apnumaha. That is Bhimasena's advice to the mankind. You must always put the efforts forward and then get the luck to shine on you. Not wait for the luck to shine on you and think of working towards that. Then you will realize, at least we will have some inkling of interest in trying to find out new modalities of dealing with the challenges and the dilemmas of the present day. To get some interest generated in them about the wisdom and the knowledge contained in our ancient scriptures, Vedas and Bhagavad Gita. Illustratively, I give a few. I will tell you how Ambhrani Sukta, Aham Rudre Bhirvaso Vishcharam Mehama Ruta Vishwadevaihi. It tells you, it's the Rashtra Gita. It tells you what kind of nation we should build. The nation itself is speaking. In our Rashtra Gitas, we pray our Rashtra, Vande Mataram or Janagana Mana, etc. We praise our Rashtra. In the Ambhrani Sukta, the Rashtra itself is saying what I am doing. So in that process, telling us an idealized version of what a nation should be, what governance, what administration, what wings should be there. So it's not, scriptures are not meant for rituals as is understood. Vedic mantras are profound in their knowledge and wisdom content. So we must have a revolutionary change in our attitudes towards them and build at least a few people, a group of few people who would enthusiastically canvass and recreate our interest in the scriptures the main source material of our heritage culture and heritage knowledge. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno Yatra Partho Dharudharaha Tatra Srir Vijayo Bhutihi Dhruva Nitirmatir Mama. Sudhijana Sumandaram Sudhindra Sutasevakam Sushamindra Gurum Vande Sujaindra Karodbhavam. As I mentioned yesterday, our ancient scriptures, the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, Smritis, Itihasa Granthas and other Shastra Granthas are all full of very wise messages. They are full of knowledge and wisdom. Simply because we are not aware of their contents, we should not show disrespect to them. In the present situation of conflict of civilizations and cultures, in the present situation when the external forces of thoughts are influencing our mind, are influencing our lifestyles, we are in the danger of losing our identity, our cultural identity, our respect for ourselves. And I feel this is the most dangerous moment for any society or for any nation to grow, to build itself further. Pride for heritage, pride for oneself is the most important initial factor, most important strategic factor for anybody to grow. You ask yourselves, I would address the students, if you lose self-confidence, would you be able to study well? If you have the confidence that you can solve even the most difficult problems of mathematics, you can understand the most difficult parts of your subject. If you move with that confidence, then you will be able to resolve. And the joy which you get when once you have solved the problem, you have resolved the exercises is unparalleled. Therefore, self-pride, self-confidence is the most important ingredient for success in life. I had mentioned yesterday that, I should mention a little bit about myself because I see a large student community here. In my life, my parents are my guide. They taught me certain values in life, certain attitudes to problems. My mother used to always say that you have a large potential to achieve. Don't compare yourself with others, but see what best more you can do. Then my father used to always train us in Sanskrit and Shastras in the early hours of the morning, even though our subjects in the schools and colleges were different. I was a mathematics student at BA, statistics student at MA, and economics and econometrics student for my PhD. But the pursuit of Sanskrit and Shastras in the midst of all these diverse subjects was entirely due to the perseverance and persistence of my revered father and mother. And also, when I had occasions to go abroad after completing my PhD, my mother used to tell me, why do you go there to foreign country to learn? You should go there to teach them. See, this is the kind of pride for oneself which has sustained our heritage. In the past, India was the most rich country, both materially and spiritually and intellectually. So that was the time when foreigners were looking to come to India and learn from here. And they came, they looted, they exploited, they also made us feel small by telling us that your ancestral culture and wisdom are nonsense, are of no meaning. So that process of denigration, that process of humiliation, that process of making us feel small has continued for such a long time that we have started discrediting ourselves, de-recognizing our past. So in the independent India, after more than 65, 67, 70 years almost, we should clearly learn as to how we rebuild our nation on the basis of the foundations of pride for heritage. So always we must have a pride for our family, pride for our society, pride for our clan, pride for the nation, See, pride does not mean durahankara. It only means abhimana. So you should have the feel that I have the potential, I can do it. So to the youngsters from the schools and colleges, I would like to urge you that you must develop a pride for our heritage. And then you will realize that our scriptures, Vedas, and in particular, since I am going to speak about Bhagavad Gita, I will give stress on the messages contained in Bhagavad Gita. So you must listen to the discourse. I don't say discourse, but my own lecture, because the word discourse is often used for traditional religious discourses, but it is a discourse of thoughts, discourse of new approaches to life. So you should listen to this with a sense of faith that there is some wisdom in it. As I mentioned yesterday, at the cost of repetition, I would say, since our subject is Vedas and Bhagavad Gita, the word Veda has come. Many times, many of you may be having the names as Vedavati or Veda, see. But the Veda, how the root name has come. Veda means jnana, vidajnane. Sanskrit is the most rich language. You must all use this occasion to take a vow that I would learn Sanskrit. Then only you will be able to know more about the rich cultural, intellectual heritage of India. How do you understand the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita and even the Annamacharya Kirtanas or the Kirtanas of Purandaradasa or any of your stotrams? You will not be able to understand unless you have at least minimum knowledge about Sanskrit. Because we have lost Sanskrit for the last several centuries, we are unable to know ourselves the depth of the messages that are contained in our scriptures. We are depending upon translations, that too translations beginning from the Western world, in English, in various other languages. They also give sometimes translations in our Indian languages. So depending upon translations is the most misleading thing to know the basic content of the original text. So one vow we should all take as a result of my 6-day lectures is that we will all learn Sanskrit and read the scriptures and the texts from the original Sanskrit and understand. We can work out modalities, the Institute for Higher Vedic Studies and other Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapith, where I was Chancellor for 10 long years, and then the Vedic University. Tirupati is that way very rich, institutionally very rich, and a rich place for resources. Only thing is, you would need to have your own resolve to get the right kind of intellectual strength for your future. Now, having said that, so Veda comes from the root Vida, Vidajnane. Vidajnane is the root. In Sanskrit, all the words come from certain roots. If you look at Oxford Dictionary or any other Macmillan's Dictionary, against each word of English, there is a Latin root given. But they don't tell us as to how the word was derived from the Latin roots. Whereas in Sanskrit, or Panini's grammar, the Patanjali's Mahabhashya, very profound basic work is done to tell you how words are derived. From Vidajnane, Veda comes. Therefore, the name itself indicates that it is a treasure house of knowledge. Vedas are also called Srutis. Why are they called Srutis? Because they have come to us from generation to generation by the medium of listening, by Sravana, by the ears. The Guru teaches the text to the student, to the Shishya, and the Shishya makes it by heart, and then he teaches in turn to the... Do you remember? Do you know how you can make your studies learned only by Sravana? The ancestors, Rishis and the Rishi Kumaras and the Sishyas had tremendous mental power to get the gist of the lessons by Sravana only. And they used to have Sravana in the Vedic classes, Guru and Sishya, and then they would have Upanishads where they would sit with the Guru, ask questions. Upanishads are like tutorials. When a teacher finishes the class, you go to the tutorials. I hope that system exists in our schools and colleges now, in the universities. In the tutorials, you have greater opportunity of interacting with the teacher. So the Upanishads are like that. There, the student, the Shishya, asks questions. He is given freedom. Many people say that our ancient scriptures were autocratic. The rishis were authoritative. They never allowed discussion. They were extremely, high-handed. It's not like that. In the Upanishads, you are allowed to ask questions, and the guru is supposed to answer if he knows the subject. Many gurus have said to the Sishyas, in the Shatprashna Upanishad, we have an occasion that the guru says, I don't know the answer to your question. You ask the next rishi that is coming this way after 15 days, you learn from him. Such sincerity existed in our knowledge field. It's not to show off that I know everything. So in the Upanishads, even a person like Satyakama, he asks all sorts of questions to his father, but still he is respected. So there is a system of question and answer in our Upanishads. And then we have got Vedangas, Shad Vedangas. This is Shiksha, Kalpa, Nirukta, Vyakarana, Chandasu and Jyotisha. They all came as guides. You have today guidebooks to help you to know the meanings of certain theorems, to give examples of similar theorems. So these 6 Vedangas were like guidebooks. In situations of conflict, in understanding the Vedas, the Vedangas were useful. Then came, of course, Upanishads, Brahmanas. And basically, Vedas are 4. Before the classification of Vedas by Vedavyasa, the word Vedavyasa means he is an editor of the Vedas. He is a person who put all the Vedas in a systematic manner. That's why he got the name as Vedavyasa. So earlier to Vedavyasa, the scriptures were infinite, Ananta Vai Vedaha. And Vedavyasa knew that the future generation will not be able to read the entire infinite scriptures, and therefore he classified the Vedas into 4 categories, according to the contents, according to the purpose, and according to their focus. See, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda and Atharva Veda. Of course, some Vedas have got texts from the other Vedas into their own Sanhitas. But essentially 4 Vedas and a number of Upavedas. Even the Artha Shastra is considered as Upaveda. Vastu Shastra is an Upaveda. Silpakala Shastra is an Upaveda. So they all got the status of Upavedas because they derived their contents from the basic source material of Vedas. So you can imagine how much was the richness of the literature in the distant past. Many times we think that our older generation, the Aryans, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, were barbaric because they did not have the present day television, they did not have the present day air conditioner, they had it. They had it by their mental power. They could see the things from the distance with their yogic power. And they did not need these physical instruments to see through what was happening at a distant place. They could perceive, they could see. The mental power is so unimaginable. You just pause for a moment, you close your eyes. Can you think of landing on the moon? You can. You have gone to the moon and landed, and you are touching that deer inside the moons. So the mind's power is infinite. And so the Vedas, the rishis of our ancient times, had cultivated the mental power in an extraordinary manner. And we have lost that over time because of our food habits, because of our lifestyles, because of our lack of faith in ourselves. Therefore, we must have full faith in ourselves to develop our own internal faculties. Every student, every individual has infinite potential. Because God exists in us, we can reach Him and get the powers from Him by concentrating. You also see, while you are studying, you will be able to get the maximum when you are focusing on the subject. If you are thinking of 100 things at a time when you are reading, or if you are looking at the television serial and reading, you will not be able to get the full power of your mental faculty. But if you close all the televisions, gossips, and all attractions, you focus on the text, then you will be able to get maximum out of your internal potential. So that is the secret of our mental power. So our ancestors, rishis, and that was the rich period of rich culture, rich civilization, rich intellectual heritage, rich intellectual canvas. And therefore, they have produced vast literature of infinite intellectual significance. If you start studying Vedas, I am just at the preamble, if you study Vedas, those who have examined the Vedas from different angles, they say it contains science, it contains physical science, it contains insights about the social science, it contains insights about psychology, it contains the insights about astrology, astronomy. So it's such a rich canvas of subjects that are covered in the Vedas. Maybe the language is a little tough. It is not the same as the modern Sanskrit language. You need a guru to tell you what are contained in it. But Vedic science is extremely, powerful. Vedic mathematics is extremely powerful. Sometimes if you are subscribing television, they show that we will tell you about Vedic mathematics. It is useful to you in your competitive examinations. You can solve problems just like that when others are still struggling to write down the formulas. So there are certain very insightful formula available in Vedic mathematics. And a number of concepts of Vedas. If you are a student of mathematics, you will know that there is some theorem called Pythagoras theorem. Pythagoras theorem, in a right angle triangle, the sum of squares of the two sides of the right angle is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. So this theorem is not just due to Pythagoras, the Greek mathematician, but it is due to the Baudhayana Rishi. He had given this also. So a number of insights. I will not go into the blood circulation. We attribute it to Neil Harvey, the Western scientist, but it is contained in the word Hridaya only. Hridaya means, Ru means Arane, Da means to give, Aya means to go. That means the job of Hridaya is to suck the blood from the other parts of the body, give it after purification, and give it a force to go to the other parts of the body. That is why the word Hridaya will tell you. So in fact, in our Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapit, when I was Chancellor, we had organized a very powerful Sanskrit science exhibition to showcase as to how many of the so-called modern scientific concepts and discoveries were contained in our traditional ancient literature, Vedic literature. So that is why I am telling you all this only to make you develop a sense of pride, a sense of interest, a sense of attachment to our ancient scriptures, and have a faith in the fact that they contain lot of useful material for our everyday life. So Vedas today have become only the material for rituals, for doing homa, for doing sandhyavandanam, for doing any marriage ceremonies. No, Vedas contain rich treasure of knowledge. Vedas contain knowledge about science, about psychology, about physics, about chemistry, about the world structure. So don't have a despise towards the Vedas. We in India are proud to have been the motherland for Vedas. I had been to foreign countries a number of times, umpteen number of times. There was a Vedic conference in Leiden, in Netherlands, and I was asked to deliver the keynote address. I had the privilege of delivering a small keynote address. And there the people came and touched my feet and he said, "You are coming from the land of the Vedas." But unfortunately, in our own country, if I say that this is a quotation from Vedas, they would look to the other side. They would not show interest. That is the misery which we have come after a long period of, I should say, colonial rule and also a long period of loss of confidence by ourselves. This is now time for the independent India to feel proud, and in the present wave of globalization, I am an economist, so I can speak some economics language also. You see, in the present wave of globalization, the Westerner and the other powers always tell you that you are not good for this, good for that, but we should develop a sense of pride for developing a sense of pride for our ancient wisdom and knowledge.